All right, ladies and gentlemen, come on in. This is your old pal, CHH, here today. And today, guys, I want to talk to you about 10 perfect Blu-ray releases, 10 perfect horror Blu-ray releases, because whenever I do, 10 horror Blu-rays once you own has not gone anywhere. I'm bringing that back very soon because I know a lot of people like that show. And but I wanted to do something a little bit special because I've been asked about this before, like, hey, what is the best release from this company or this company? And I was like, why don't I just do 10 releases that I just think are perfect? And if you don't have these, you should try to get them. Some of them are a little harder to get now, but it's not impossible. And even with the notion of maybe a 4K release of a film that maybe talked about here coming out, that will also make the release of the Blu-ray probably a little bit more accessible price-wise too. So maybe not be something you get right away, but write this down, keep this in your back pocket, and let's get to it. And a lot of these are situational perfect, for instance, because of whether they were out of print for a long time, they came out, they did something right, there was something that needed to be done right on this release for it to be perfect, and it happened. And I just think these are great releases where I can't think of what else could have been done better. Maybe you have a little bit more insight that you might be able to give me, but let's just get right into it. This is not in any particular order, but I've got 10 titles here. I want to start right away with something really cool. The movie I want to talk to you guys first about is the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release of the movie Fade to Black. Okay, why is Fade to Black perfect? Okay, let's talk about this movie for a second. Fade to Black has been missing on physical media for a number of years. It was gone for a long time. I think it had an Anchor Bay VHS and possible early release DVD, and then it just went away. Boom. It went away so much that I never even heard of it. And when I got into horror in 2008-9, I just never even saw an image of it. I never saw people talk about it. What happened was, years and years later, In Search of Darkness came out in 2019, and it was this 80s horror documentary that was just showcasing titles from this era, the 80s. And a movie gets brought up called Fade to Black. I had never been more in love with a movie before seeing it than I had been with Fade to Black. It stars the great, what's his name? Dennis Christopher, right? Yeah, Dennis Christopher, who we know him as Eddie Spaghetti from It, the original TV series that Tommy Lee Wallace directed. And the premise of this looked incredible. It was about this kid who has a horrible home life who just truly uses movies to escape reality. Sounds a bit familiar, right? God knows I do that sometimes. I escape my reality with movies, and I'm sure a lot of us do. Even people that have decent lives, it's like we need to escape. It's such a relatable thing for us. So I saw the trailer for this movie in here. They're talking about it, and I was in love with what I was seeing. Right around that time, all of a sudden, Vinegar Syndrome announces, hey, we're doing a Blu-ray release for that. Now, when I heard about this, I was like, but I want to hear Dennis Christopher talk about this movie. Who produced that? Oh, Erwin Yablonski, who made Halloween? See, I got to hear him talk about this movie. This came out right after Halloween. Sure enough, when Vinegar Syndrome announced their Blu-ray release of it, I got it, and I looked at the back for the special features, or I looked at it when they announced it. Incredible. Not only did they have Dennis Christopher talking about this movie, they did a full commentary with Dennis Christopher. They brought Erwin Yablonski in to talk all about not only the making of this film, but how the Halloween changed his career, the trajectory. He had a little bit more control in what he wanted to make, how he wanted to make it, and it was this is a perfect Blu-ray release. The movie looked incredible. I don't remember if it was restored from a 4K of the negative. Yeah, it was 4K restoration of a newly discovered 35. This is a perfect Blu-ray release. There was 2 slipcovers you could have gotten for this one. I went with this one, which I think is just a perfect look, and it's the same. Which sometimes it's nice to have the same art when you look at it. It's like, oh, that's nice. It's such a uniform looking release. One of the best movies. One of the best psychological horror films ever. I love it so much. This is not only a perfect movie to me, but a perfect release. If it doesn't ever get a 4K, that's fine. This was done so well. It's one of the most highly recommended films I could give when it comes to that genre. Such a good job. Dennis Christopher just killed it. So to me, this was perfect. And look at the back. Here's some of the characters he portrays. Great movie. And this has one of the best endings I've ever seen. So many times horror movies have lackluster endings, or the endings for movie. 9 times out of 10 when I talk to people about movies, I'll say, oh, it was great, but the ending didn't land for me. It was all good, but the ending. Which I have this saying, if I enjoy 90% of the movie and the ending doesn't work for me, I still really like the movie. I don't really care about endings. That's kind of true and it's kind of not true. I think you know what I mean when I say that. But when an ending actually is incredible, you won me. So Fade to Black, perfect Blu-ray release. Next up, I might get a little slack for this one, but I think it's, in actuality, as good a release as you could have done for it, right? And it's not a fan favorite movie, but they don't need to make a 4K of this. This release is perfectly fine. They did a great job with this. I'm talking about Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Now listen, I'm never going to try to tell you this is a great movie, but the fact that this movie exists is incredible. Renee Zellweger, Matthew McConaughey, a Texas production, Kim Henkel directed, so he's part of the original. This movie is so bizarre, I can't help but love it. But in actuality, there was really two cuts of this movie. There was Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. And then there was the original extended version, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Both versions are in this movie. Now, they don't have the elements, the actual 35 elements, I believe, to The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Those were gone. So all they really were able to work with, I think, was a high-definition print of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. So that looks great in Blu-ray. But they gave us both versions of the film, and basically the scenes that are the return scenes are just lacking in quality a little bit. Not even really, really bad, but just a little bit compared to the actual Next Generation scenes in the movie. So it's all spliced together to make that version of the film. And what's interesting is I feel like Scream Factory today doesn't even go through the trouble to do that sort of thing anymore. Like, they wouldn't do it. They certainly don't do director's cut 4K versions. If a movie came out, they give you the theatrical cut. Look at Life Force. Life Force is far from a perfect 4K release. They gave us a 4K of the theatrical cut, but they did not give us that for the director's cut, which the director's cut has so much zany stuff. But during this time, this was like kind of when Scream Factory was like, we're going to give you everything we can with our releases. Not only that, they did a great job with special features. They got the effects guys doing interviews. They got the guy who played Leatherface there doing interviews. It's a perfect release in my eyes. I actually like the artwork. I think it really matches the zaniness and look of the movie. It's not a great movie, but it is a wild, wacky movie, and I think it's a great Blu-ray release. If we never get anything else besides this for this movie, I'm perfectly happy. Perfectly happy. I think this is a perfect Blu-ray release. So dig that one for sure, guys. Next up, this is an interesting one. This is a perfect Blu-ray release, as much as it can be. You know, there are things that could happen, but in actuality, I can't hold it against the release because it's not up to the physical media people's control. But as far as the release goes, this is perfect. I am talking about Via Vision's Rob Zombie Halloween 1 and 2 Blu-ray release. Now, why is this perfect? This is the only time, as far as I can tell, where we actually get both cuts of the movies together in one purchase. For years, what happened was, Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 came out in the theaters as a theatrical versions of the film. They had different music cues, especially in part 2. They had different music cues. In part 1, there's a whole different scene that takes place with the jail scene as opposed to the director's cut. I mean, completely different scenes. It's not like extended bits and pieces. In instances of both of these movies, especially part 1, completely different scenes. In parts 2, we have a different ending. We have different music cues throughout the movie. They are different versions of the films. But what happened? Rob has a lot of sway and control, I feel. Whether he means to be this way or not, he does. So what happened was, on home video, what became predominant, although not exclusive, but predominant, especially on the higher-end physical media side of things, was the director's cuts of the movies. I feel like most people actually prefer the theatrical cuts to Rob's Halloween films. So if you wanted to get the versions of Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 theatrically on Blu-ray, you had to get this Alliance overseas release from Canada, which really isn't a big deal, but I think it leaves a little to be desired for the physical media collector, right? Because it's just it's a double movie pack. It just doesn't look very exciting holding that case in your hand, and I get that. Physical media is a physical format, therefore we want things to look cool. So Via Vision put this out, which is completely region free. I did a full review on this last Halloween when this came out. It comes in this really cool slipcover. We've got artwork from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 on the front. It even says includes the theatrical and unrated director's cuts. And here on the inside, guys, we'll pop this open. We've got Rob Zombie's Halloween unrated director's cut, the making of Halloween, Halloween 2, the director's cut, and here's our second disc right here, which says Halloween's 1 and 2 theatrical cut. So we get all cuts of the Halloween films on here, with all the bonus features that you would have gotten previously. The only thing that would have made this go from perfect to life-changing, basically, would have been the inclusion of that supposed making of Halloween 2 documentary that Rob... The first one's on here, but the second one's not. But it's never seen the light of day because it's in a vault. That's no fault of Via Vision's. Nobody can get access to it ever. It's probably never going to be seen. So there's that, right? But that is perfect. I mean, for fans of this movie, this is the best release you can have for Rob's Halloween films. Completely inclusive with everything you could have that's been available in one place. So that's really cool. The next one, this one's really, really cool because it's perfect in the sense that it's done with such this homey touch, including the guy who made the film being a part of it. I am talking about Arrow Video's Blu-ray release of The Mutilator. Now, as you can see on the front cover of mine, it doesn't say that. What shows on mine is the cover of Fall Break, which I implore all of you to swap the art to Fall Break because I love the artwork for Fall Break. The movie was never released as Fall Break, and this is what makes this such a homey, touchy, perfect release. Buddy Cooper, the director of The Mutilator, was hands-on with the making of this Arrow Video Blu-ray release, which is a brand new 2K restoration of the unrated version original vault elements, which Buddy was very helpful in making happen. The movie looks as good as it probably needs to, okay? It really does. The Mutilator is a fun little 80s slasher film, which I even think was in the mid-80s, which makes it come out a little bit later. It was 84, so it was it was mid-80s. So really at the tail end of the craze, but it's since had a lasting effect. Buddy Cooper is so many special features. You will learn every single droplet of information about the Mutilator. And what's so cool about this release, and what makes this such a really unique, perfect little release, is Buddy's involvement to the 10th degree was that, you know, he has in his house still, I still think he might have a few, he might have sold out of them by this point. The movie was going to be called Fall Break, but then he swapped everything and changed it to The Mutilator, which you can obviously reverse the artwork to that in this release, which is how you kind of get it when it comes out. But he never ever even released the movie at all as anything but The Mutilator, but he initially was going to call it Fall Break. So what's so cool is he got with Arrow and they scanned the unused poster that they were going to use for the movie, and you could swap the art to that. So this is very much a Buddy Cooper release as much as it is an Arrow Video release. So that's what makes this release from Arrow so perfect. It's really one of the most comprehensive, well put together slasher film Blu-ray releases of all time. I love it. And with it being a 2K scan from really, really close film vault elements, it's as good as it needs to look. It looks really good, and I love this release. I look at this release as just the exact way to do a slasher movie release. Give us every droplet of information which happens in here. Give us the alternate artwork. Even though it wasn't used at all, we still want that Fall Break artwork. So cheers to Arrow and Buddy Cooper. This is perfect, and I love the Fall Break artwork so much. I'm so glad we get to have it with that. Next up, guys, is another Scream Factory release. We have a couple Scream Factory releases. This, to me, is a perfect Blu-ray release, and I talk about this one as much as humanly possible. Scream Factory did the 1979 Frank Langella Dracula movie. This movie looks sensational, but what really makes this release so good is the fact that they gave you both versions of the film. So this movie came out theatrically in 1979 and was in full, beautiful color, obviously. Universal was not going to have a Dracula film come out and look black and white in 1979. You know, that just wasn't going to happen. But the thing is, the director, and the director's name was John Badman, he wanted to make the film have more of that Universal Monsters look. So he did a television version of the film. I believe it was television. I think that's where he premiered it, but I'm not sure. It might have been in the early 90s they did this. but they did a desaturated color version, which is a very, very light color. It's really pretty much black and white, which is actually a great way to watch the movie. They did both versions of that for this release. They gave you all of that, where I think in the old standard Blu-ray releases, you only got the theatrical version of the film, which is in full color. And there's good interviews on here. There's interviews with the director and everything. So, again, tail end of the true golden era of the Blu-ray Scream Factory era when it comes to comprehensiveness and giving you the versions of the film, which they feel different for sure. The 1979 Dracula Blu-ray release from Scream Factory is great. Don't let the cover art fool you. This is an intense, great Dracula film. Frank Langella is incredible. I think he's my favorite he's in top 2 Draculas. I think my number 1's Christopher Lee, but Frank killed it. Great movie. Donald Pleasance is in it. You're going to love this if you haven't seen it. Every time I talk about that, my only goal was for somebody else to check that movie out because it's that good. This was a perfect Blu-ray release, but the story was hysterical, which I'll tell with this. This was early days of Scream Factory. I'm talking about the double pack Nightbreed limited deluxe release. Comes with the theatrical and the unrated director's cut of Nightbreed. I prefer the theatrical release of Nightbreed. I always have. I think the unrated cut just turns it too much of a love story, where the theatrical release is much more of a horror film. But it also comes with a great booklet in here about the making of the movie. So what's the funny story with this? You probably have heard this, but if you haven't, when this came out, Scream Factory had a standard release, which had 2 versions of the film, and then the super bundle release, which is this one. The people that ordered the more standard release, which came in a solid Blu-ray case and a slipcover, got sent this release, and the people that ordered this release got screwed over, and they got sent the other standard release. So Scream Factory then emailed all their customers that ordered directly, and they're like, hey, we screwed up, send us back your movie, and we're going to send you the right one. It's funny because more people that I have talked to about this told me they did the right thing and sent the movie in. I know some other people that didn't, and I don't blame him. You guys screwed up, but that's the funny thing. So a lot of people that have this may not have even ordered this. They ordered the regular version and didn't send their movie in. So that's what happened. It was one of the biggest blunders in Scream Factory history at the time, and there was voicemails. People were getting called about this to send the movie in. Like they were freaking out. I'm sure somebody at Scream Factory got in big trouble over this because this had to have cost them a lot of money, because they still had to do right or make right, I'm sure, for the people that didn't get this. So, because this is limited, this is number 313 out of 10,000. But in terms of a release, guys, I've never felt the need to upgrade to 4K, because even though the picture quality may have that boost, obviously with the HDR and everything, when I grab this off the shelf, this is when I think of Nightbreed, this is amazing. So this is perfect. I would see if going on eBay to get that, guys. You may be able to get it still. I don't know, because that's a release that even when a 4K comes out, it may not affect the value of this release. It very well may not. So keep that in mind, guys. All right, next up, guys. This is a perfect Blu-ray release. One of the big things about going to a higher format that we all hope is to watch some of these movies, especially slasher films, in high quality. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes we'll grow up watching a movie, or we'll see a movie for the first time. In my case, I watched this movie for the first time on an 8-movie DVD pack, which at the time was way cool to people. People were freaking out about this because these movies were stuck on VHS. The movie in question is Slaughter High. A lot of us watched the movie on DVD and could barely see the movie. It was like the screen was black. It was one of the worst VHS rips in human history. Vestron did an absolute perfect release. They finally got the original film elements to this movie, completely transformed the movie. 100%, not 99%, completely transformed the movie, like watching it for the first time truly, because you're truly seeing the image, really. Not only that, they did a great job with special features. They got the cast to talk about this movie. Great in-depth interviews. This is a perfect Blu-ray release from Vestron. Love this release so much. In essence, this really is the greatest Vestron Blu-ray release if you think about it, because of what it accomplished. They took a movie that was in the depths of 240p hell and brought it all the way up to 1080. Not 480, not 720. They brought it all the way up to full 1080p HD and changed the movie. People were just so excited at the time. So this is a perfect Blu-ray release from Vestron Video. and a damn good slasher film. Next up, guys, when it comes to the found footage genre, there's this weird little subgenre in the found footage genre that I'm really a big fan of, and that is the news station found footage genre, where you're watching a news broadcast of something. There's some really cool stuff like WNUF, the Halloween special, which I love. Pick that up from TerraVision, guys. This release encompasses how great this movie was when it came out, because there's great documentaries about it, and it's one of the creepiest found footage newsroom movies of all time. This release, the 101 Films release of Ghostwatch, is literally a goddamn perfect release. This is this big, thick release that comes with the movie, this awesome booklet with the making of the movie. I love it so much. The release has great special features, truly great special features, a whole making of documentary, a retrospective from filmmakers who got together to talk about how much it freaked them out when they watched it. Because this tricked people the way Blair Witch did. People thought Ghostwatch was real when it came out. It freaked people out, especially the younger kids that saw it. I think Ghostwatch is a creepy-ass movie. You have to watch it late at night. Turn the damn lights off, though. Put your phone away. You have to get lost in it. Because at first it just kind of seems like it's just fun little thing. But there are these random moments that happen throughout Ghostwatch that make your skin crawl. Truly fantastic. You could not get a better release than what 101 Films is. By the way, this is a Region A release. This is an American release from 101 Films. So I implore you to get the Ghostwatch release from 101 Films. This release is incredible with the booklets, the making ofs, just awesome. I love it so much. Ghostwatch, guys, just a fantastic release. Perfect. It's a perfect Blu-ray release. Next up, guys, now the 4K release, you could also substitute it for this, but the reality is a lot of people still aren't 4K, but I probably should have grabbed it still anyway, because this release is out of print. These last two kind of are out of print, but the 4K release, consider it the exact same thing. But so I'll do this one briefly. The Return of the Living Dead release, my luck with this being my favorite horror movie, my favorite movie of all time, this was probably one of the best Scream Factory releases of all time, because they got every drop of stuff that was done for this movie and put it on here. There really was nothing, no stone left unturned, and there was no interviews that they really could have done that wouldn't have covered anything that wasn't already covered in true detail. So not only did they get every single drop of archival interview footage from the MGM DVD releases, which every MGM release that came out had more features added to it. So they got all of that, but they also put the More Brains documentary on here, which brought this from a 9 to a 10. Now, if you get like I said, this is out of print. You may be able to find it now easily on eBay used because the 4K is out. But if not, if you get the 4K version of this, not only will you get the movie on Blu-ray with the new 4K scan of the negative, where this was a 2K interpositive, which still looks sensational, mind you. But you'll still get every drop of those special features I talked about. So this is possibly one of Scream Factory's best releases, if not their best releases they've ever done. Because it's one thing to make new interviews and stuff for a release. It's another thing to actually go out of their way to relicense everything to put it back on. That's sometimes, and in that instance, just as important, if not more, because they covered everything. Everything was, every drop of information from Return of the Living Dead was covered under that. And guys, last but not least, this was a perfect Blu-ray release to me. I love it. I really wonder if this movie's going to come to 4K soon. It's one of those almost white whale 4K upgrades, to be honest with you. But if it doesn't, this release was sensational. The limited Reanimator Blu-ray release, again, was about as perfect as release you can get. You get the unrated version, but they also give you the integral version, which was the first time the U.S. ever got this. Now, I don't remember exactly what was going on with this one. I just know it was a very, very long cut. Yeah, it was 105 minutes. So it was the longest cut of the movie ever done as far as I was aware, and this was the first time in America that we got that. So whenever you get a new cut of a film for a classic like Reanimator, that is, no pun intended, that's very integral, however you say that damn word. I don't know I don't know. Is it the integral or integral? I don't know. But my point is, it's very important to have that. This release is great. This was like the early days of the hard box releases from Arrow Video. This was kind of like a prototype. They kind of had things worked out, but not to the way they kind of do it officially now. Like as you can see with this, they gave you the movie in one of those almost booklet type cases, which isn't bad. But you know, now we know how people prefer things in a standard blue case inside of the hard box. But yeah, this was a perfect release. It still is a perfect release. I don't know that they're ever gonna do a new version of this. I don't know if Arrow still has a license for Reanimator. I got to imagine they do. But if they don't, I'd go out of your way, guys, to try and get this. Now, this was restored from 4K of the unrated and integral versions. So again, done to the highest capabilities. So perfect release, bloated, not even loaded, but bloated with special features, as you can see. Just sensational. Even on the integral disc, there's limited exclusive bonus features just for that. So yeah, and everybody involved with the movies in here. Everybody involved with the movies in here. So this is a home run 10 out of 10 release. Really, it's an 11 out of 10 release. So guys, those are 10 perfect Blu-ray releases. If you have any you'd like to add down below, let me know. If you think this was a good idea and you'd like to see something else like this down the road, I can definitely do a volume 2. And if you want me to do this for a 4K format, I'd be more than happy to, guys. For now, this is your old pal CHH saying God bless you, take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Keep physical media alive and well. Together, we're stronger. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.